Welcome to the Infill Podcast, where we interview the most interesting members of the 3D printing and maker communities, live and with audience participation. And now, here is your host, Jonathan Levy.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome. I'm really excited about today's episode because I'm a huge fan of our guest. Before we get into who that guest is, you could look below in the description. But before we get into it, I do want to share with you guys our new segment, which is called What's Printing, brought to you by Octo Everywhere. And I have some actually really exciting prints that I'm working on. You can see a bunch of them are printing right now at the office. Python is currently working on, and this is a cool thing of Octo Everywhere, I can just open into the actual Clipper interface. Don't try to go to that URL because you can't go to it. Python is printing PETCF, a 47 centimeter aluminum 2020 extrusion. You can see I just added a nozzle cam, which is pretty cool. I need some extrusions for something that's not super strong. I'm also printing some bumpers, door bumpers on Narwhal. And Millipede is currently printing, hopefully, we'll see how it works. I did manual supports. Another 47 centimeter extrusion with Fiberon PETG-CF. Really cool to be able to print 47 centimeter long things. So thanks to Octo Everywhere for making this possible and for sponsoring. You guys get 3 months of free premium perks if you check the link in the description. On to today's guest. Speaking as if he can't hear us is always very awkward. You know his YouTube channel. I know his YouTube channel, Teaching Tech. He's a former teacher, now full-time content creator based in Australia, who's been doing this now for 7 years and has never missed a week. Michael, welcome.
G'day, Jonathan. Thanks very much for having me. Hello, everyone.
My absolute pleasure. And guys, let me know if our audio levels are roughly the same. I know you all hear it a little bit differently than I do. Michael, tell us a bit about your creation journey. I know a lot of us over the years have started watching your content when you were already many years into it. And you very often mention that you were a teacher. I know now you do this full time. Tell us about that progress and evolution.
Sure. Well, yeah, the channel name Teaching Tech comes from the fact that I was a technology teacher. So I did that for 11 years. I think it was 2009 that I started teaching, finished at the end of 2019. And when I was teaching, I did YouTube channels and videos for my students related to the school, kind of unofficial channels for my department at the school. And I would put up tutorials and lessons on CAD and electronics and things like that. So if kids were away, they could catch up on work, and or kids that needed extension work, those really enthusiastic ones had a bit more to do. And so I had 2 channels like that for the 2 schools that I worked at. And then towards the end, before I went full time, I was kind of thought teaching is very rewarding in lots of ways, but in other ways it's very tiring. And I felt I don't think I can sustain this until retirement age. So I thought, there's one of the other channels got to about 1,500 subscribers from me doing nothing, like occasional videos, poor audio quality, all of that. I thought if I actually do this properly, maybe it'll go well enough that I could do teaching part-time, so 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week, and I can make enough money on the side to from the YouTube, and I'd have a better balance. It wouldn't be so draining. And then I was extremely committed to it, and it really took off. And after 2 years, I was able to quit teaching, and I'm coming up on my 5th year full-time running Teaching Tech now.
How was it going from, because I know a lot of folks in the audience do consider creating content. How was it going from a very structured job that had very clear off time to YouTube, which can kind of consume 24/7?
Sure. Okay, I'd say that's different for every individual. And I kept that same type of structure. I try to do Monday to Friday, normal hours when my kids are at school and my wife is at work. And then I try to stop when they get home. So I'm more or less fitting to that mold. I do like Patreon stuff on the weekends, which doesn't take too long, checking into our forum and posting there. But generally I stick to that same thing. And I know a lot of people struggle to kind of work and have leisure in the same place. Like during lockdowns and things a few years ago, I know some people struggle with that, and they'd need to have a different area where they went to have lunch. Doesn't bother me at all. Like I can have the same desk and computer switch between work to procrastinating, work, lunch, back and forth, and I don't get sick of that space, so that's not an issue for me.
And I think when you moved to a new home about a year ago and you built a studio like downstairs, so you do have a separate area for printers, which is also your hobby and also work, but it's not like it's in your living room.
Yeah. Well, when I started the channel, it was just in like a small bedroom that we weren't using. And then we shuffled around and I took over a living space that was off the kitchen. And then when we moved house, one of the big things about this house was the downstairs level had like this entertainment room, which is where I'm set up here, and then a bedroom off the side where I have my editing computer. And that was a huge difference because if something's printing, it's pretty hard to record audio for a video with the printers in the background. So now I can just shut the door and it's just a bit more storage room as well, a bit more space, a bit more storage room. But that little thing made the most difference.
Awesome. Now, I'd love to hear from folks because I could geek out on content creation with you all the time. I'm a huge fan of your channel. But I'd love to hear from folks how much you're interested in the chat to hear about content creation versus talking about 3D printing. Why don't we start off and err on the side of 3D printing, and I'll ask, how did you get into 3D printing? I mean, was it just through exposing students at school, or was it a very small part of the teaching tech job? And then you kind of became obsessed.
These days, 3D printers are in most schools in Australia, even primary schools, but definitely high schools. But the first time I used one was when I was finishing uni in 2004. So the uni got, I think it might have been a Stratasys. It was like massive, big, like giant box. Everything was enclosed and everything came back surrounded in support material. And like the quality by like our home hobby standards was pretty average. Like we've come a long way from there. So that's the first time I used it. But I think it was 2012, the school I was at was interested in getting one and I was in charge of running it basically. That was a MakerBot Replicator 1, one of the old plywood laser cut frames. And then later that year, I ended up getting my first one for home. And I was so excited at the time that this giant box, that you needed dedicated space for and only a university could afford, all of a sudden, like a decade later, less than a decade, all of a sudden, it was a home hobby thing. So I came in after all of the rep rap stuff, but I suppose we're still on the tail end of that. There was still Mendel's and things like that, but it was starting to get a little bit more polished back then. And then never looked back.
So really from the origin of your channel, because I know a lot of channels start off as like DIY and then slowly become more and more 3D printing. From the beginning, it was very heavy 3D printing for you.
I did cover, when the channel started, a lot of it overlapped with what I was teaching. So I did have more breadth. I'd have like programming on Scratch, occasional electronics, more graphic design, things like that. But a fair bit of 3D printing, and I think they were more popular. So I kind of gravitated towards that naturally.
Yeah,
that's what
you double down on what works. Now I've noticed, I don't think you take sponsors in your videos, or the vast majority of videos don't have sponsors. And I'm curious to hear, I also want to talk about your review policy, but yesterday, YGK3D did a great video about FL Sun requesting kind of a paid review, and it had to be positive. I did not sign that contract for those who didn't see the community posts, but I think it's really interesting to talk about with you specifically, like the ethics of reviews, and if you have had someone in a sponsor position in the past, can you really do an unbiased review? And the reason I want to ask you is because you have a wonderful review policy that you've invited other content creators to base their policies off of. I drew inspiration from yours. So let's start with why no sponsors?
I think it doesn't really align with my vision for what I want from the channel. So when I started the channel, I was always aiming to make videos, the type of video that I would want to stumble upon if I was looking up whatever that topic is. So I want like concise, factual, like personally, if I'm watching, F1 videos or whatever, and they have a sponsor segment, I just skip through that bit. So, I personally don't like watching them, so I don't want to encumber my audience with them. But not to say that I'm trying to be damning of everyone that has sponsor segments in their videos, because I think most of YouTube does these days. But I guess I'm fortunate that I guess there's enough margin financially that I've never felt desperate that I'm I'm not going to be able to continue this unless I take on sponsors. So yeah, I've never had a sponsored video. I have a Filament sponsor. I get free filament from them, and they're up on the wall behind me. But yeah, I've never had a sponsored video at all, and I think I would probably rather drop the channel and do something else than have to take on sponsor segments. Yeah, it's just not what I want. It doesn't fit my vision. Yeah.
I respect that. I think it's also, this is another question I wanted to ask. I think it's just differences in how you conduct your channel. Like, I think you do all your own editing. Is there anyone else supporting you, like admin staff or accounting, or you do everything yourself?
Yep, 100% me. I've had offers for editors over the years, but I just don't see how it would be viable unless they were in the same room as me, at least for a while, until we're on the same page. I just can't imagine, like, I've got, my idea of the video, and I'm filming things with that in mind as I go along. And then when I edit, all of the clips are in my folder that I filmed, ready to drop in that order, and sometimes out of order. I can't imagine explaining and writing like bullet points how the video is going to be all mapped out. By the time I did that and we went back and forth and I was uploading clips and they were saying, correcting things, I think it would probably be slower. So I've just stuck with it solo.
Yeah, but that also gives you the freedom. Like, I can flat out say I wouldn't be able to do my videos the way that I do without sponsors. Just AdSense basically goes to paying my staff and rent in my studio in the most expensive city in the world. But that I don't have that freedom. Like, I have to take a sponsor in pretty much every single video. And so I'm navigating, coming back to this topic, I'm navigating this very tricky kind of minefield. How often have brands asked you, because everyone kind of is up in arms about FL Sun. I don't think they realize how many brands play games. They may not ask for an outright, paid review, but they'll ask to see the review, or they'll say, we'd love to send it for a review. And after the review comes out, we'd love to sponsor some videos. How common is that in your experience, and has it become more common in the 7 years you've been doing this?
Okay, so on my contact page, which I moved to my website rather than the about page of YouTube, just so I could have a list of stuff I'm not interested in, most people, either companies or just viewers, completely ignore it and they just don't read it at all. So it says there, like, I don't do any sponsored stuff. I'm not interested in any sponsored stuff. So typically any email I see that says like paid collaboration, paid sponsorship, all of that stuff, I don't even open it. It's as simple as that. Any companies that I have done review videos for, or to protect myself, really, I will make them, before anything is sent to me, I'll be like, here's my review policy. We go no further unless you're happy with it. And generally they are. So I feel like I've got a solid foundation to then, if I need to be brutal and say a printer sucks, I could say it, as long as I'm professional about it and I stick to what's in the guidelines.
Right.
So that gives me confidence, having that as a basis to work from. In terms of, I could think of 3 videos ever where I've ever had any type of involvement from the company. One, they wanted to see it, but they wanted to see it before it went live, but there was no agreement that they had any editorial control. That was for like a resin printer, 2-in-1 stirrer and UV thing. And that was it. Bamboo Lab, the A1, they just had an embargo. I couldn't talk about it publicly before a date, and that was it. There was no creative control or anything like that. And the X1 Plus open source firmware, that's probably the most the other party has had, involved in the production of it. But that was simply because there was a lot of misinformation out there, and it was just to ensure I didn't put my foot in it and say something that wasn't true. So I was happy that was collaboration.
You were kind of, the way I saw that video, you were kind of like helping use your platform to clear up misinformation. So if I reflect back kind of on your answer, it was, hey, I have this policy. That's the first line of defense. And there's almost never any discussion after that, which I think is cool. And I think it's important. And I'm very grateful as a 3D printing consumer. I'm grateful that there are folks like you who've figured out the economics of doing this. I'm also a huge fan of Aurora Tech Channel. I think I won't use superlatives like best, but I think she does some of the most thorough reviews of every machine. I check like before I upload my video, I check and I'm like, okay, did I miss something? Like I didn't know that the Idea Former has 5 gigahertz network. Like she's so thorough. I'm like, oh my God, I totally missed that. It does support 5 gigahertz. That's a great feature for a printer that gets 200 megabytes of G code sent to it. Anyway, I noticed that she now has started saying, Idea Former sent this printer over and agreed to sponsor the video, but I'll be. So I used to always think to myself, it's really great. She still, as I understand it, lives with her parents. She's young, doesn't have a mortgage and kids like you and I do. She can afford to do these reviews. And now even she is accepting, not criticizing, because I think her reviews have remained very thorough and very objective. But it just, as people in the comments are saying, it illustrates the economics of doing just reviews, which are by default a video that only people who are interested in that machine are going to watch. So already, the AdSense is going to be less. The economics are very tricky. Is part of not accepting sponsors just that you don't feel like if in the past they had contributed to the channel, you would feel some difficulty criticizing their products?
I think people, if they watch enough of your videos, they'll get an idea if you're honest or not.
Sure.
But I suppose if you have sponsors, it muddies the water like that. Like I never make like propaganda videos about the filament from my sponsor. The most I'll ever say is, I like this filament, which I do because I was a customer before I asked if they'd be interested in coming on board. I guess it just makes it more clear cut for everyone. Like if, for instance, Aurora Tech, if she says it's sponsored and you as a long-term viewer and you watch her reviews, you'd be able to tell if the tone changed for the sponsored ones.
Right.
And someone who's never seen a video before might see that and automatically think shield, but for any ongoing viewers, you'll know whether or not. So if her integrity's there, it should be obvious.
That also bothers me, is the knee-jerk reaction. It's human, it's human nature, and we see it like in politics. People have this knee-jerk reaction, but it's like, she states, she literally says, I'm still going to try and remain as objective as possible. And if you watch the review, she's pointing out criticisms. I guess I'm able to not have that knee-jerk reaction because I have the printer sitting right next to me, and I'm like, yeah, that is a problem. Or, that's not as big of a problem as I thought, but she came down on it. Good for her. She called them out on the profiles not being that good. I kind of let it slide. But other people have to go on what is she not showing? Which I think is interesting and difficult. There's another issue, which I don't know if you worry about at all, because none of us are free from bias. Certain brands, without saying it, have just stopped sending printers to people who are particularly critical and find a lot of flaws. Is that something you worry about? Not getting the hottest new printer from X brand because your review was very critical.
I don't worry about it simply because I realized a few years ago I don't find doing reviews particularly enjoyable. So if you look, I've got a playlist with all my reviews. They're getting further and further apart. I guess for credibility, you have to be prepared to burn that bridge with a manufacturer. Like for me, if it's gloss something over and then people get the printer however long later when they start shipping and it's obvious that what I've said isn't true, then I figure I'm done for credibility right there and then. So a couple of companies where I have burned the bridge, and one of them being Creality. So the last one I did for them was the CR10 Smart, and that was a very scathing review because I thought it was a very poor printer. And had some emails back and forth with high ups at the company, and I basically gave them a list of a bunch of things I thought they were doing wrong as a company. Like I thought, well, now's my chance. I talked about them stealing models on Creality Smart. What's it called? Creality Cloud.
Yeah.
I talked about the lack of after sales service, having too many models, just flooding things, not like a whole bunch of things that I was seeing in my comments, and that was my impression. And they were very polite and they listened, and they haven't asked me to review a printer since then, and that's their choice. I don't feel entitled to that, and I'd rather never review another printer again from that company than have given a fake review for that.
Absolutely. The black and white is easy. What's hard for me is the gray. Like I'll find it, particularly this was an issue for me after flying to China, sitting to dinner with these people, meeting their children, my kids playing with their children, which I thought was a great move, but it made it very hard, like, to not give people the benefit of the doubt, right? So I'll never say something that's objectively not true or that I don't believe, but I'll be like, the profiles for this are shit, but the printer doesn't ship for another month. They say they're going to improve the profiles, and I believe them because I've met them and I've shook their hands and I've met their wives. But I shouldn't do that. That's not the way to do it. It's like, this is, and I admire Nero for this, like with the SV08, he's like, this is the printer I got. This is the printer I'm reviewing. And I've reconsidered that policy. Like, you're going to see when I talk about the T1 Pro, I'm like, one profile is not good enough. You can't just give me one profile, and it's not even a good profile, In any case, I admire the heck out of what you're doing in the way that you do it. And it's clear to me that the audience feels the same way. So
I think it's fair, like you said, to point out they've promised this, but if you're selling it as, this is definitely going to happen, which obviously neither of us would have. Companies constantly make promises when if you're doing something and you're saying, I'm having trouble with this, they say, oh, we'll fix that for the production one. So I've got no trouble mentioning, they said they'll fix it, but
right.
I'm never going to tell the viewer they will fix it, because who knows?
It's also tough because we're in an era. I wonder if you agree with this. I said this to someone else yesterday who has a large channel in Russia. And we're in an era where most of the hardware, unless you have like some aberration, like, the K1 extruder issue, most of the hardware these days is pretty good. And the firmware has gotten so good at eliminating so many issues like vibration just in firmware that really, you're reviewing the hardware and what it's actually capable of, but more than anything, you're reviewing the integration between the profiles and how much time have they spent actually getting the most out of the hardware. Like the profiles, which are something that ideally people continue improving. Creality has already started shipping the K2 Plus. I'm still getting a, update your profiles button every few days. So it's hard, right? It's really hard. And there are so many things that now can be fixed in firmware. Like if the automatic material system has some bug, there's so many sensors that they can adjust. And you see this happening with like Tesla, right? Where Cybertruck will ship and it has a massively dangerous feature that will cut off your finger. And then they adjust it in firmware over the air download. So it's like, do I come down on that? Do I give them the benefit of the doubt? Do I find a middle ground? Yeah.
I think I try to make a point of saying when I review something, this is my experience with what I had. Go and see other people's, look for trends, because I suppose one person would have a lemon. Something I see a bit is people saying, oh, they must doctor a really good printer for you because, you're on YouTube. But considering some of the stinkers I've reviewed with obvious things wrong, I'm not so convinced. Maybe it happens, but I don't know if it's happened to me. Like, sometimes I wonder, like, has anyone paid any attention to this, let alone me getting a special one?
Yeah. Netanel posts, and this is something that I really did some deep thinking about, because MKBHD says the same thing all the time. Never buy a product or review a product based on the promise of future software updates. And what was like a big eye-opener for me is, okay, we talked about Tesla. Tesla has a notorious history of promising things and not delivering. Apple, the iPhone, the single best-selling product of the last 50 years, potentially, shipping without Apple Intelligence, which is crazy. So imagine you're reviewing that product. It's like, well, they are the most valuable company in the world with $1 trillion in cash reserves. I'm pretty sure they're going to deliver on their promises, but I have to review the product as it is. It's a crazy time we're in for technology, where the bar of product readiness is lower, I think, than it's ever been. And consumers are supposed to accept that because 70% of a product these days is the software.
Yeah, I agree. I see parallels with 3D printers are getting more like video games, and video games where they launch a half-baked thing and they expect to patch it afterwards, but you're paying full price from the start. So I can understand companies fine-tuning and getting the most out of it over time, but it's in poor taste to launch something that's half as good as it should be, and probably 3D printers are the same for that. So they might be able to fix some things, but is it still acceptable to receive something?
Right.
Yeah. So
I have a big question that I want to ask, and it's one that I hope doesn't offend you. I'm going to cliffhanger it though, because I have to really quickly thank this video's or this stream's sponsor. I didn't intend to do that, but I just looked at the clock and you see I have an automation that puts it in the chat because I've forgotten to do ad reads a few times. But it's a cliffhanger question. Because this video is brought to you by PCBWay. And for some reason, my automation. And right on cue, of course, it mutes my microphone every time I do the ad read. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for all the things. If you need PCBs made, they have an awesome online tool. If you need metal 3D printed, if you need injection molding, I've had aluminum 3D printed. I've had aluminum CNC machined. I've had tool steel machined, and it always comes out phenomenal quality, fast turnaround, fast shipping. And one thing that I really love about them is I am not an engineer, and although I've done a lot of Michael's wonderful Onshape tutorials, it's actually what got me into Onshape, I'm still not perfect, and PCBWay always, invariably, has a real-life engineer, trained engineer, message me and be like, hey, you know the way that you design this, it's going to cause warping in the manufacturing process, which blows my mind, like that they have, I actually saw this when I was there, they have just a room full of trained engineers going over every single order, which is awesome. So thank you to PCBWay. Register below using the link for $5 off your first order. And now my cliffhanger question, which is we talked a little bit about the fact that you have the freedom to edit your own videos and not take sponsors. I love your videos. I think they're the most well-researched, informative, and educational videos out there. You shy away, and not but you shy away from fancy slider shots, RGB lights, all kinds of like glitzy effects. Is that an intentional thing because of the freedom it gives you? Is it you just don't care that much about videography? Is it you want to devote your time solely to the core content? I guess what I'm saying is I sense that it's a deliberate decision, and now that I understand kind of your philosophy, so I'd love to hear you think about that, because I am always allowing myself to get sucked into more and more expensive gear, more and more flashy production methods, and it's a one-way trap, right? You can't go back.
All right. Firstly, not offended at all. I think that's a fair observation. Another one people say is I rarely have jokes and things, and my delivery is like very business-like. That's on purpose too.
Okay.
That's also a fair observation when people say that. I guess I've always been about the function more than like the fancy bits on my videos. So like my editing is pretty straightforward. I'm also playing to my skill set too, I'd say.
Sure.
3D modeling I love, but doing animations I don't really like. I learnt Flash way back in the day. Like tweening and animations like that on Flash, and I can do that a bit on Photoshop, but I don't really have the skill set to be doing animations, and it's probably about economy of time as well. Like if I see other videos and they have nice videography and things, I appreciate it, but I'm most likely not going to be doing that for mine because of the time I need to invest in setting it all up. So yeah, part of it's not being my skill set, maybe being a bit lazy in terms of learning the new stuff, and doesn't really fit in with the style of video I'm going for, I suppose.
I admire it. I heard some content creators, and now I don't remember who they were, but saying like that this is a Faustian bargain. And there was one content creator who was like, dude, I rock up, I have a camera, I have a mic, that's it. Like I've not gone down that one-way road. And the other one was like, I think the other one was like Linus Tech Tips. And he's like, yeah, we spend $3 million a year on production value. But you can't go back, right? Like once you've got all the fancy pan shots. I admire it because I think it also speaks to just, if you look at the success of your channel and your videos, it speaks to the fact that the information is so good and the writing is so good. So, I was just curious the questions about it. And now, the playing to the strengths makes sense, but also the freedom that it gives you, right? Like I have a full-time editor, full-time. Mm-hmm. That's a full-time salary.
If I had an editor, I think I would ask for that type of thing more.
Right.
If the resources were available like that, I'd probably push for it more. But yeah, since it's just me, yeah.
Right. Right. And that's, by the way, also me playing to my strengths. Like, I hate editing. I don't want to edit. I haven't edited in over a decade, even in my last business. So folks are asking a bunch of stuff in chat. Let's give them some love, and then I have a whole bunch more questions. Voita Stroby, sorry if I'm slaughtering that, says, have you considered Hedamame instead of those headphones?
These are the worst headphones I own. I'd use them for Zoom calls. That's it. Unlike some people might know I'm into like cars a lot, and I have a sim rig upstairs, like a full fancy sim rig. I've got like really good USB wireless headphones and mic on that. But yeah, these ones, if I can embarrass myself, I've worn off all the foam on one of the ears, and the other one. So they're a bit abrasive, but yeah, I guess I think they were really cheap too. So it's a bit embarrassing, but. Yeah, I never do live video, so I don't really need anything fancy. Fair. I suppose it's like the panning shots and whatever. It's not bang for my buck in terms of money or time.
I love it. I love the like pure functional thing. Any plans on investigating filament recycling more? This is something you and I can commiserate about for sure.
Yep, definitely something I'm very passionate about. So last week I did the video on this PHA filament. And there will be at least one follow-up video to that. So the response was really good. Often I found whenever I cover recycling, there's a percentage of people who will just be like, I don't care, I'm putting it in the bin, I'm buying the cheapest stuff. You know, that's obviously they can vote with their wallet and do that type of thing. For me, I hate wasting stuff. I hate generating any more waste than I need to. So who's been in touch? So this product is discontinued, but a member from, I think they were the CTO. So basically I'd put in 3 years of research into developing this, and it sounds like they're launching again with another big company with like an improved version. So I'll be following up on that.
Awesome.
The University of Queensland, someone from there got in touch to help me with the biodegradability testing. So yeah, there'll be some more of that. I bought a filament extruder like a year, maybe 2 years ago now.
Yep.
That's not working very well with recycled filament, and the support people have stopped answering my emails for a couple of months now. So I guess I'm stuck in that in terms of I can't use the automatic profiles, and the manual ones are really complicated, and without the help, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do. So when that video comes, it's going to be, this hasn't worked too well for me, unfortunately, because of support not answering. You know, I can't really recommend something like that.
Sure.
I'm on the waiting list for Green Boy 3D's pellet extruder. So I'm hoping to, print recycled PLA and things with that. And
let me know.
Yep, sorry.
Just today, I mean, I now have, my shredder doesn't work very well, and you don't watch a lot of YouTube, you've told me. So like I spent 6 months and $2,100 building a recycling setup, and everything. Well, okay, the ArtMay works well if you give it quality, but I've got just enough like wood chips and dust and metal shavings going into my regrind that it's really, really hard to actually get quality filament out of it. And also the shredder's always overheating. So just today I was like, I need to figure out if I can pellet extrude this, and if I can pellet extrude it to a 1.2 millimeter nozzle. Like, I don't mind using being limited in what my recycled filament can make. I print enough stupid shit like big trash cans, step stools, like using the material for anything, even if it's not the best use of 3D printing, is better than the landfill to me. I just spent 1.4 kilos printing a mini step stool that fits in between my tripods. Like, totally fine. But I need to get to that point where even a 1 millimeter nozzle is going to do the job, you know?
Yeah, so I think that's, if I do get filament off it, recycled, I know it's meant to jam more easily. So it's my intention from the outset to just print with a larger nozzle and accept, if there's slight variations in the diameter of the filament and whatever, like you said, like who cares? This would have been in the bin otherwise. So if I can get some big projects out of it and it's like net cost and impact is zero, I'm happy with that.
So Igor from My Tech Fun, hi Igor, another channel I love, wants to know your opinion about carbon fiber filaments and their safety. His approach is similar to woodworking safety, but he's curious what your opinion is. I'll let you share, and then I'll try to navigate that. I don't know if you know, another YouTuber put out like a expose with carbon filaments under a microscope. You saw it? Okay.
Yep, seen that.
And then Joe Prusa replied. So what's your thinking?
I saw that too, yeah. I think hopefully going forward, companies that sell it, a lot more of them will go through that safety testing and certification like Prusa did. I'd probably recommend people to stick to those type of brands at the moment, and that should give a kick in the bum for all the other companies to actually go through the testing and whatever else as well. I hadn't really thought about it in terms of touch before the Nathan Builds Robots video came out. More if I was ever sanding or something like that, I would, anything with carbon or machining it, anything with carbon like that. Mask and glove territory and whatever else. I don't use it a lot. I suppose as a Formula One fan, I like carbon fiber when it's in the purest form with the weave molded, like pre-preg and autoclave and all of that. Like I've seen some videos. There's a really good UK channel called Easy Composites, and they do a comparison with like generic 3D printer carbon filament, one where it's a continuous strand of carbon the whole way through the spool, and it's printed on a special printer that cuts it every time it would do a retraction and start printing a new bit. So you've actually got continuous, closer to like a molded product. And then they compared it to actually like hand laid carbon stuff as well. So I'd always start with carbon filaments. Like if it's not continuous strands, then you're shooting yourself in the foot and it's not going to be as good. But I guess other channels better set up for it have tested that, and they can speak to the merits better than I can. So I don't use it a lot.
I'm really excited about that. Like what I didn't realize, I did a video on carbon filaments and like what are they good for, and I have a couple videos from Igor in my because he does really great strength testing and stuff. I'm building a rig, but I don't think mine's going to be strong enough to test some of these new filaments that are coming out. Like I just got Polymaker's PPS CF. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff, like scary. And I saw Morley Kurt towed his camper van with like a 1 centimeter ring of, I think it's Bamboo Labs, also PPS CF. So we're getting to crazy strength where like some of the samples you can't break without like a car jack. But anyway, what I didn't realize was the heat improvement properties. Like fine, okay, even if it's not as strong, if you put even polycarbonate in an oven, it's going to deflect at some point, but having the carbon gives it so much more heat resistance, which is why on the other screen I'm watching, you might see my eyes dart off. I'm actually able to print apparently PETG CF on the Idea Maker, and I'm printing aluminum extrusions for inside my printer. Aluminum. My take, since someone asked for both our opinions, was okay, it gets no question about the respiratory considerations. That's 100% a no-go. I would never sand it. But like, if something, I'm not a doctor, I don't play one on the internet, but if something gets into the top layers of your skin and it doesn't get infected, so I think we've all gotten splinters that don't go that deep, and the risk is infection, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't go into the bloodstream, doesn't go into the body, it's like,
I think you touched
I will say, like, sorry, go ahead.
You touched on something really important when people do like safety stuff with 3D printing. So, you measure the air and it's whatever value, and it might sound bad, it might sound good, but really for context, you've got to compare it, like you said, to things that everyone just accepts day to day. So is that air quality reading any worse than walking down the street in a busy city with, pollution and stuff everywhere? Because, plenty of people don't think twice about that. So
today I was taking my kids to school, and I tow them on a bike trailer, and there was, someone was blocking the street, and we're behind a car's tailpipe for like 20 seconds, and I'm trying to like get around, but there's nowhere to go. Like I can't fit. I'm like, this is not healthy. Like the three of us just behind a car and his tailpipe going. So yeah, exactly. Let's have a look at the rest of the questions. These are great questions, guys and gals. How do you decide what videos to make? What's your process for choosing what video comes out when?
I have a long list. So people I meet in real life and I tell them I'm a YouTuber, which I don't really offer that information freely because they're going to,
Sure.
there's all sorts of misconceptions. Like recently when that happened, there was a guy I played soccer with. He's like, oh, so you like work 2 days a week and then just play games for the rest, like you put your feet up. Like, no, it's not like that at all.
Not like that at all.
Anyway, so a common question I get is it hard to come up with the ideas? And for me, the problem is the opposite. I've got like a year worth of videos, half a year to a year worth of videos on a list. The problem for me is coming up with the time to actually make them. In terms of my criteria for a video, something of great public interest, something can help a lot of people. So maybe there's some new slicer thing that universally is great for everyone's printers. I'm happy to share things like that. If it's someone else's plugin from the community, I'm happy to. It's really good to really be able to put the spotlight on that. Something I'm interested in particularly, quite often I'll put a project of mine on, even if I know it won't be popular, because I'm just really excited about it and I want to share it, and I'll ride the popular and unpopular videos if it means I can make the stuff I want to make. That's probably the main two. Oh, that's the third one. Requests. So Patreon requests, viewer requests, that type of thing.
So I'll say,
can't accommodate everyone, but if things come up a lot, or if it's like a long-term patron, I'll try my hardest to accommodate.
So that's a good kind of jumping off point, which I was gonna say until you said Patreon. I was gonna say, for someone who doesn't take sponsors and is dependent so much on AdSense, you don't seem to worry too much about, is this video gonna be a banger or not? But I guess Patreon is a big part of your kind of mix.
Yeah, I consciously don't want to be a slave to only doing things I think will be popular. It doesn't mean I've got my head in the sand and I'm going to purposely put out stuff nobody cares about. Like if there's a topic I'm interested in and I think it will be popular, then I'll go for it. But I'm not aiming for that for every video. Patreon helps for sure. I don't know what the percentage is. I still think I would make 2/3 to 3/4 of my revenue just from YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Sure. Yeah. I crunched it last year. Like another contentious thing is affiliate marketing. It was like 10% or something.
Right.
It used to be a lot higher in the early days of the channel, funnily enough, when I did a lot more like testing this product and that product for Ender 3 and making guides and things like that. I used to have a lot more affiliate income, but as I've done less reviews and whatever, it's really tailed off, and that's fine.
Yeah. That's another one where, like, in a perfect world, everyone wins, right? But then if you abuse it and you're willing to recommend, I always like to think to myself, like, look, most of these brands, it's the same percentage. The printers are more or less the same. Like, I have no incentive to recommend a product I don't believe in. And for the longest time, Bamboo Lab shut down my affiliate account. I was still recommending it as my top printer, because like you said, if someone gets that printer and they're like, I'm not going to trust those reviews anymore, or those comments, or whatever it may be. A lot of people want to know about your SVO8 toolchanger, my SVO8 toolchanger. How's that coming along? Or should we wait? I don't want, spoilers. Should we wait for the next video?
How far away will that be? Maybe a couple of weeks. The trouble is, like I was saying, like time to actually make things. I probably started that project too early, which means I've had to redo things because I was just excited and wanted to get it going. And then like, I jumped the gun, got to redo this again, cover it again. The hardest bit for my version is the guys I'm working with. I think you're working with Draft Shift as well.
No, I mean, I'm just taking the open source. So I kind of just told them, hey, I'm going to do this. Do you guys mind? They're like, no, go right ahead. And Nadir is doing all the adaptation to fit in with their ecosystem.
Sure. So they don't have an SVO8, the guys I'm working with, the main guys from their GitHub repo, and I don't have a Voron V2. So I haven't built it. Like when the instructions say do it to Voron spec, I got to look that up. Like I haven't built one myself. So that's where we get stuck a lot. And, despite this being my full-time job, because I'm making a video a week, it's not like I can just work only on that for a bit. Sure. And, they're doing it as a hobby and a passion project. So progress is slower than people would like, because I see after it's been a while, I see random comments through all my videos. When's the next SVO8 coming? When's the next SVO8? Which is fine.
That's what the chat looks like here as well.
Yeah. I think the next one is I want to tackle the filament mounting. And there's one thing I really don't like about the XL. The filament path is so long. So to feed in TPU from the front of the machine, you're trying to feed it through from the front, there becomes a point where there's just too much friction. And by the time it gets to the top and the filament run-out sensor on the top of the tool head, it just buckles in there. And I have to pull apart the tube, feed it through, reconnect the tube. I hate that. So I think for my SVO8, I want to probably have two 2020 extrusions across the top and have a system where the spools sit in rollers and have as short as possible PTFE tube going to each hot end. Looking at the packaging, it might be a bit challenging, but that's what I'm aiming for essentially. That's probably going to be the next one. And then,
I've had an idea, and I'm not the person to make it happen, but you could make it happen, or Jon from Proper Printing could make it happen. Like for all these printers that have a reverse Bowden tube, just a handheld, like how do I describe this? A handheld, battery powered, with just a button for forward and back. Like take an extruder, any old cheap extruder, and just put the filament in, put it in the Bowden tube, and just click, and then let it do the feeding. I wish someone would do it, but I'm not the guy to do it. Like I wouldn't even know what kind of board you would run.
Okay.
You know?
I think Clipper supports that. One of my patrons, his name is Nova++. He builds like crazy random printers. I love it. He's got a build thread where he's always updating. Pretty much refuses to follow off-the-shelf stuff. It's always his own designs. He was posting a similar, I think it was him. I hope I don't have the wrong person. So I think Clipper supports having a second extruder stepper on the other end of a reverse Bowden tube just to feed through. And you can set up the right ratios and everything to help feed if there's a lot of filament friction. So I don't know how similar it is to what you mentioned, but if
I
you
was
had
literally
enough...
just thinking, like, for all my different printers, having one that I can just take and
you know what I mean?
Like
I hate changing filament in printers. That's one of the reasons I like having so many. Sometimes I'll have one with black PLA, one with another PLA, one with PTG. And I'm happy because then I don't, if I want to print something, I've most likely got a printer with that color and filament ready to go. And I don't even have to walk into the room. I can just click print from the office next door and happy. I hate that inconvenience. But a system like you mentioned where I've got all my filament in, they're all dry, and some sort of routing system to,
especially like I've got 12 filaments on my ERCF, like just loading that, if I want to get them all loaded up, is a nightmare, right? A lot of people want to know, let's skip over that because we're talking about printers now. We'll come back to it. You are known for having a lot of esoteric printers. You've got the SecKit SK tank. When I talk to the folks over at RatRig, they effectively have a framed picture of you on the wall because you're one of the first people ever to kind of put them on the map. What are your favorites? I think it's too hard to pick one. What are your favorite printers? And to give you some kind of more honed in specifics, if you just need something to work and none of your printers have any filament already loaded, which printer are you going to?
All right. I'll go back to the first bit. So SecKit and RatRig, I think I was one of the first channels, and RatRig sent me an email after I did that series saying it had really helped employment in their region, which was like amazing.
That is so cool.
Yeah, they built something from nothing. It was great to have that type of impact. Both of them contacted me and they just seemed like passionate makers, and I was like glad to have a look. And I know Vorons are very popular, and the reason I chose both of those models is again for convenience, because from their shop I get the whole kit. I didn't have to go through a bomb and get this from here, this from here, this from here. So that type of thing really appeals to me. I still like to build a Voron one day, but that's why I built the other two less common ones. Go to my P1P, I just do PTG, and that's just like never stuffs up. The RatRig and the SK tank, they're both workhorses. The X1 carbon I only use for filaments that need an enclosure, which is not very often. So for that reason alone, I don't use it that much. So yeah, probably go to the tank because the PEI bed is particularly sticky.
Yeah.
As weird as it sounds, like a little thing like that can make the difference. I'm like, okay, I'm tight for time. I want to print this. If I choose that one, it's got very little chance of actually coming loose. So that's probably my go-to for PLA.
Awesome. Awesome. Kirk says probably time to remove the 3DPO Australian store sign because the company went out of business. Despite your best efforts. You win some, you lose some. Increase the employment in an entire region in Portugal. Fail to keep a local business alive.
That was sad because back when I was like halfway through my teaching career, I had ordered some resin printers from them. So I've known the owner for a long time. So, who knows, maybe they can come back. But yeah, I haven't bothered pulling it down just in case somehow that's a value for them to have the exposure. But
that's cool. A lot of folks want to know what's going on with the racing channel. When will we see more content? Have you completed any races?
Okay, not yet. I still haven't driven the car more than half a meter in the garage. So for the last 2-3 months, my friend Matt, who's been on the channel briefly before, he's a professional mechanic and fabricator. The car's been with him and he's been... So basically the next video, which hopefully is not too far away, is going to open with me crossing off a lot of stuff off my whiteboard. It'll be a big update. So he's basically done all of the servicing, which expanded because someone had mixed brake fluids and it turned to like gel and glugged everything up. So a bunch of the brake stuff needed to be replaced. All the fuel tank is mounted. The fire tank is remounted. Kill switch. So basically everything except the custom foam seat that the inspector said I needed before it could get a logbook, which is the equivalent of a race car registration. So I'm expecting to get the car back in a week, 2 weeks max. And then there'll be a big video update. And then after that, the next one will be doing the custom foam seat. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's how they do race car seats. So you basically sit in the car without a seat with like a garbage bag underneath you. And you have like rapid expanding fire retardant foam. You pour it down, you let it settle, and then you go sit there for half an hour. And then when you get out, it's molded to the car and you perfectly. Really cool. So I've already got everything for that. So there'll be no delay in like saving up and buying the foam. I've had it for months. And then after that, it can actually go on the track even before. I can do track days before I finish that logbook certification. I only need that to enter a racing series.
Cool.
So I'm hoping.
How are you dividing your time on this?
That one is purely because I have a habit of taking on too many things. I said to myself, if before I start the second channel, that can only ever be, it's done on weekends in spare time as stuff comes up. I'm never going to try and stick to a schedule. And I guess I've lived up to that because it's been enormous delays between videos. And that's another thing. I get random comments on the main channel videos, like, when's the next update? I'm like, adds a bit of pressure, but it's probably good to have a kick in the bum as well to keep me moving forward on it. But yeah, it's true, very big update. Hopefully not too far away.
I think you just have to, like, I'm a big believer in that other people's priorities are not your priorities, right? It's like the whole gripe I have with email. Like, I only do email twice a week. 2 days a week, and it's because I once heard someone say, and it's totally true, like an email inbox is someone else's priorities for your time. And like as a content creator, I'm sure would agree, like you got to be spending as much of your time as humanly possible in the space of creating projects, creating content, just creating. Anytime you're responding, you're not creating. So
yeah, there's for those people you mentioned who are interested in like making their own content. One mistake I made when I started, I didn't set up a separate email address for the channel. I just used my normal one. So I get stuff about my kids' school. I get stuff about the channel. I get stuff for like buying and shopping online. Everything's muddled in together. So hot tip: if you're starting a YouTube channel, set up separate email for it.
Yeah. Well, Michael, we've come to an hour here, and I think it's a good close. I do like to leave the door open for future conversations, and you're always welcome back to share projects. We're going to put links to your Patreon, obviously your channel in the description. Any other kind of closing notes or things you'd love for people to check out, ways that we can support you?
If you like my videos, then watch them. If not, that's fine. I'm not on any other site. I'm not on Twitter or anything else. So yeah, I'm just happy to keep making videos. And if people enjoy them, then that's good. it's a great community to be a part of. So yeah, and particularly like there's yourself and other people doing SVO8 tool changes. Like it's not a competition between us. At the end of the day, if viewers can use this part from mine, that part from yours, they can pick and choose and mix and match.
Oh, well, I'm fully letting you walk so I can run. Like every time you put out a video, Nadir and I are in Discord chat like, oh shit, we didn't even think about that. We probably need to look into getting one of those. Like, we hadn't planned that. Like, my goal with the build is just because I don't have a Prusa XL, like I don't have any tool changer. I want this to be the ultimate tool changer for me. And your goal, which I think is laudable, is like, how affordable can we actually do a tool changer? So 2 very different builds, but because you're, I think, only the second person ever to do an SVO8 tool changer, and certainly the first content creator who's documenting it, I'm definitely borrowing heavily from the things that you've learned. So,
yeah, well, I'm glad to share, and I'm sure that's probably things I'll get from you too.
Awesome. All right. Well, Michael, thanks so much, and look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for everyone for tuning in and asking questions.
Yes, sir. All right. I'll take us out and we can debrief.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infill Podcast. For show notes or links to anything mentioned in today's episode, visit thenextlayer.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to leave us a review wherever you're listening, or click the like button to let us know. And consider subscribing to The Next Layer on YouTube so you can tune in live and participate in the next conversation. We'll see you on The Next Layer.